Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hobbies Podcast. I'm your host, Elias, and my co host, Christian, is here. And we also have a guest, Hilma. Today, we're going to be discussing the hobbies of manga, anime, and manhwa, which is Japanese and Korean cartoons, essentially. And, well, I guess you two can introduce yourselves.
Mm, my name is Christian. Yeah, that's about it. I'm 18. Yeah, I think that's also good to know. So, yeah,
Alright.
I've been watching anime since probably 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we were gonna go on that train, I watched it since I was like 5, if you count Bakugan, Beyblade, and those. But because those are technically anime, right?
Yeah.
So you can count those, but I started watching anime consistently 2014. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my my name's Hilma. I'm 20, if that counts for anything. Uh, I mostly read, but I do watch some anime, and I did watch a lot more when I was younger. But I
Mhm.
started reading and watching when I was about 13 years old. So maybe 2015.
Mhm.
And
Hmm?
yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Cool. What is it about these forms of media that are different from like what we see in the traditional Western media and cartoons?
Oh, I don't know exactly what it is, but as I said in a previous episode, I'm really like my mind and the fantasy. Like when I was younger, I always had like a big fantasy. I was like a big dreamer. I could go around hours for hours playing with my brothers, and creating characters that had like these superpowers and etc. I don't know. It's just kind of anime made everything much more visual for me, and I don't know. I just in general, I think anime kind of speaks in a really fun fantasy way sometimes, and that's mostly what made me get into anime in general. I watched a show called Gurren Lagann. It was like this mecha kind of show, and I remember I binge watched that like as fast as I got to know what the name of of the anime was.
Mhm.
And it was just like the whole concept about like, oh yeah, they are out in space, there's big giant fucking robots,
Mhm.
and they fight. I don't know, something about that just makes me fucking hype.
All right. What about you, Hilma? Let's focus first on anime. We can move on to manga and manhwa later, I think.
Okay, so anime. Um, well, honestly, I've always just loved stories in general and a
Mhm.
lot of fantasy. And
Mm,
I think I kind of grew tired of the Western kind. It's like there's always some trends in media,
yeah.
and I grew tired of them. So I turned to anime to see new concepts. Like I'd never seen an anime, well, a series before where there's like fantasy elements and
Mm,
adventures and all of that in the same way that anime does it.
yeah, I understand exactly what you mean because I was a big Ben 10 fan and American Dragon fan, and also Teen Titans for that.
Yeah, I
And
loved Avatar, so
yeah, and from a I don't know, anime just brings something different to the table. It's like there's a bunch of as I mean, you can watch fucking oh sorry. You can watch like horror stories with love in it, and then from out of nowhere there's a space dragon from out of nowhere. And I don't know, I like the concept of anime brings different stuff to the table, and actually, I was not a big fan of love stories until I watched anime. I don't know. There's something about anime and making love stories so much more interesting, in my opinion. I don't know if it's something to has to do with like the culture in general. Of like, for an example, I live in Sweden, so stuff here in Sweden are pretty typical. Like, I don't know, Swedish meatballs, for an example. But when I see like Japanese food, Japanese people interacting and how they're have different ways of eating. Like for example, they sit on. They don't have normal chairs all the time. Sometimes they sit on the floor with like a small table, and they have different drinks. They have different like. It's something about just the culture in general that attracts me when I'm watching anime too, because it gives a different taste of the story. Because there's different ways of viewing, for example, love in the Japanese culture if we would give a perspective from Japanese culture to Swedish culture. So I think mostly that's the reason why I'm so attracted to the Japanese culture, and not just the Japanese culture in general. There was, uh, I think it was like some months ago, I got really interested in Korean shows, Korean drama,
K-dramas.
K drama. Thank you. Yeah, just because it's it's it's
It's
fun to watch.
different.
Yeah, it's different. It hits different.
I feel like exactly the same thing, that I think the culture in itself, I was so like interested. Like it was so different from how
Yeah.
we live. I was saturated of the Western media. Like this is how we live with some modifications if it was from the US. But when you turn to anime or yeah, well, K dramas, but it's like they have so many small cultural things that you notice that are
Yeah.
fundamentally different. And it just,
Yes.
yeah, it's different on like every single level of intensity. I don't know, not
Yeah, yeah,
intensity.
I understand what you I understand exactly because I feel the same way there. And it's just if I'm gonna do a little bit of an extreme example here. If we would put like Japanese Korean commercial and
Oh god,
we
yes.
yeah, and we are gonna take Swedish commercial. There's a big difference there.
Very
I would say it's kind of the same difference there as there is for series. Like some stuff are extreme. I even know that the Elias watched like his one of his first like anime he watched. It was kind of like it was an extreme, not extreme, but it was like a comedy, and he was not normal with it. So he kind of he liked it in a way, right, Elias? Because you talked about this before with me,
Which one was
and
it?
uh,
Axel World or
I think it was the Axel world.
alright.
I don't know, but I remember, and it got me thinking. Like, yeah, anime is different from like normal
Mm,
Western kind of comedy. Let's say comedy, for example. So
mm,
it's different in the way they make jokes. And as many people know, like in anime, the anime style is like big eyes. Nothing is like real, kinda. It's a kind of a getaway in a sense.
it's quite
It's
abstract art.
saturated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
saturated. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So I think it gives an it gives a weird kind of comedy vibe
yeah.
Mm.
to it.
Yeah, they're very expressive, all anime
Yeah,
characters usually. Very wide eyes, things like
yeah.
that.
Honestly, that was a turn off for me in the beginning, but like,
You kind of grew to it, right?
yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
bother me
know.
at all any longer.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was
It's
like,
certain styles, like some drawers or what you're supposed to call them, can take it a tad bit too far, but
yeah,
most
I
of the
have
time
a
you don't even think about it.
yeah, I have a great example of this. I before I watched One Piece, I was like, I would never watch this series. Every character looked disgusting. I don't like the drawing. I watched 30 episodes and I fell in love with One Piece. And from out of nowhere, I just forgot how fucking badly designed some characters are because they they do this weird thing that, in terms of uh politician power that the character have, or how strong the character is, they difference in size. So, for example, a stronger character that has also big motives are much bigger than a character who's just a normal character
Mm.
that isn't a pirate or isn't some strong politician, etc., etc. So they kind of they have a weird style to make the characters look more powerful by making them just way bigger than they're supposed to be. And I kind of grew to that style. And right now, I would say One Piece is probably one of my favorite animes just because of the way they portray different characters.
It's quite
Yes.
uh,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yes,
yeah.
some characters may look funny, and I still kind of get annoyed on it sometimes, but most of the times I don't even think about it.
Yeah, it is quite artistic. I actually think how the expressions are exaggerated, how the shapes of the people, the characters in the stories are made based off their motives and things like that. It makes the focus on the story and the message more so than the supposed realism of it, which I really enjoy about the anime.
Yeah.
I think one thing you can't ignore as well is that when they do make exaggerated facial expressions or just with the whole body expressions,
Mm.
they make them the standard. So every single anime has the same facial expression for a certain feeling. So you know exactly what the character feels as soon as they get that facial expression.
Yeah.
And
Am I
that
the
also makes it easier to just focus on the story because you know right away what a character feels.
Mm.
Yeah. Am I the only one for that? Like, whenever a character makes a certain expression, so let's say he thinks his friend is annoying, he does a certain facial expression, and I kind of, when I'm sitting there watching that scene, I kind of do the same thing and feel the same, like,
You
Mm.
kind of,
emotion.
yeah, you feel the same
Yeah,
way.
Yeah,
yeah, I kind of do the same, like, eyebrow thing, and probably put my head down a little bit and just like,
for sure, for sure.
yeah,
I
You
recognize
mirror it
that.
because
yeah,
You mirror it.
that's the weird thing.
yeah. So I think that's a funny thing, actually.
Mm.
It's
But at the same time, that also makes it kind of universal because you can use those like I don't know how much you watch memes, but in memes and stuff, you can also see these anime expressions used
Mm.
to
yeah,
exaggerate some things and
Yeah,
to make it clear what you're supposed to feel. So it's
yeah,
yeah,
like a universal language of facial expressions that means a certain feeling. Like,
yeah,
yeah. It represent the feeling that the character feels
yeah. Anime
from.
is. You go. Sorry, you go. My bad.
Yeah, no, no, it's okay. I was just gonna say that it's weird, but it's also amazing how they use facial expression and how a certain face can tell like a whole ass story, and just you just get the feeling from when you see that certain like face that they make. You just know exactly what's about to happen, and it's the same thing when it comes to like scenes that make you hype. Like,
oh yeah,
I must say, for an example now, Fairy Tale.
oh
Every
my true
time,
anime.
what?
That's the anime that got me into anime. Okay, sorry.
Like
Keep
when
going.
not when the main character Natsu is about to go against this super duper evil villain that wants to ruin the whole world, and you just see him beat the crap out of this villain. I jump out of my chair and start to hype him up. Like, that's an example,
Yeah.
because I see his face, how fired up he is to fight this guy because of all of the bad things that this villain has done. Like, I get how submerse, is that the word for it?
Yeah, you're
Immersed.
submersed in
Immersed.
something.
Thanks. Immersed, or yeah, into the story and into the feelings in the certain scene. And dude, I can't even count how many times I've cried after watching Clannad or Angel
Oh
Beats.
yeah.
Mm.
Like,
It's like that's such a big thing with anime. They can make you feel whatever feeling they want you to feel. That's
mm,
a
For sure.
mouthful.
yeah,
But like when you look at Western
mm,
series, I don't know,
yeah,
animated stuff, all of most of the time it feels like they have to make it obvious what you're supposed to feel. But in
yeah,
anime, they just make use of music, a very big component, and you introduce the character, make you feel something for the character, then put the character in a situation where you get hyped up with them, or where you get sad with them, or like
Mm.
you
yeah.
like the characters so much.
Yeah. Now I will go back to a One Piece like reference. One Piece made me cry after a ship got burned down. Does that explain anything? Like, so in One Piece, it's about pirates. Obviously, there will be ships. So the Straw Hats, which is the main pirate group that we are following through, like,
Hmm.
what is it, 1,000 episodes? They had a ship called Go and Marry, and it was their first ship that they had. And after they got to a certain point, that ship couldn't be repaired, and they were supposed to say goodbye to it.
Mm.
So they put this sad music on, show all the good memories that the Go and Marry has been through with the Straw Hats, and you just see how they start to like have these like moments with the Gomer, and you just feel immersed. Uh, was it immersed?
Immersed.
Immersed to like their feeling and how they felt for this ship, and you just start crying because this is like 200 episodes in to the series. So you have been 200 episodes with this ship too, and it kind of gets emotional in a way. And I just when saying out loud that One Piece got me crying after a ship got burned down. When I would if I would go up to a person and say that, they would just look at me in a weird way. But for me, it's like a different thing because I've been through all of those 200 episodes, watching the Straw Hats, been with the ship, and now the ship is gone, and you can see all the facial expressions from the Straw Hat crew, and when they're saying goodbye to the Go and Marry.
Mm.
So yeah,
I
I
think
think. Continue, continue.
I think that a very big difference between Western media and Japanese media is that Western media is very ambiguous with their stories because they want the reader to interpret what the story actually means. However, Japanese media goes away from that. They're very unambiguous with the story, and that allows the writer to explore the theme that they want to show the reader or viewer much more clearly, and they can go into a greater depth with the story. For example, two one of my favorite movies. It's called Tokyo Gore Police, and it's very unrestricted. It doesn't like stop itself in order to leave ambiguity, and it allows the creator to just really express himself creatively. I believe uh,
Yeah.
this lack of ambiguity that exists in Japanese media.
Isn't there also a big point that in Japan and East Asia,
Mm,
animation isn't just for kids?
that is
They
true.
make series that are for adults, and
Mm,
that's where you can get more complex stories. And those stories can range from like real life like events, or it can be fantasy, and it's still for adults, and you can still feel the subject matter isn't childish, it's for adults. But at the same time, since it's anime, younger kids do watch it. And I think that's where it's like a big difference between Western media and Eastern media, if you can make that
mm.
Mm.
difference.
Yeah,
That in
yeah, for sure.
Western media, a lot of time, animation is for kids, so they tackle problems and concepts that are very, what do you say?
Not very nuanced or uh, cruel or
Not necessarily
dark.
simple, but yeah, like that. It's like it's very straight to the point. Like
Mm,
this story is about friendship. It's like when you take an anime, it might be about friendship, but it's also about romance. It's also just adventure, and it's about
mm,
like
Mm.
hurt. It's about anger. It's about happiness.
yeah,
It's about everything, and that's what makes you feel something throughout the whole series.
yeah,
Like I can sit and cry at a happy ending, like happy tears, but
Yeah.
I can feel like the psychological burden some characters go through. If you've seen
mm,
ReZero, for example,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
a classic as well. Like at some point in that anime, the main character keeps reliving the same moment, and he sees his friends die, and he slowly loses all hope and gets depressed. And like you feel that with him. You get
Mm.
sadder, and it's like you're not happy when you watch that, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same
yeah.
time, like we can see how it kind of fixes itself in the end. So you can still have those sad moments. You're not afraid to go straight for that psychological impact. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anime doesn't shy away from horror or psychological
yeah.
Aspects
It's
of the
complexity
human.
or
unrestricted.
Yeah.
It's unrestricted from its message.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because one of my favorite series of all time is Attack on Titan, and it's a cartoon, but it uh, discusses topics and themes such as human will to survive, and it discusses war, and it discusses just these very complex and very dark themes, but in a cartoon way, which we don't at all see in Western media, and that is why I really like anime and Japanese media.
Yeah.
the thing I
And
also like about anime. Uh, just a quick one, but
yeah.
you can have an anime that is about horror and like thriller and all of that, but you can still have comedy in the same anime. And you can still have like a budding romance, and it's like literally
Mm,
very different genres in the same anime, and it
Mm.
all works out.
Yeah, and a topic that you pointed out before was about the music of anime. Like
Yeah,
that
that's
they
such a big thing.
yes, and actually I wanted to discuss that because I have throughout the years of watching anime, I have a couple of like tracks on my Spotify that I listen to almost daily just to get through the day. Like for example, if I have a test, I listen to more fired up like boss battle kind of music of anime, and
Yeah.
sometimes on Saturdays I listen to more emotional tracks that are played. Like for example, in July in April, there's a really
Oh,
beautiful end
yeah.
track
Beautiful song.
that I listen to almost every day I feel down, and it always gets me like happy. And one more thing that I thought of now is that most people that don't watch anime actually listen to anime, and they listen to anime tracks. I did not know that until one of my friends listened to, it was a Naruto opening. It was like Go Go or something like that. And I asked him like, "Have you watched Naruto?" He was like, "No." I was like, "You're listening to one of the openings of Naruto. I thought you had watched the series at least, but I guess not." And he said like, "Yeah, I don't look at these weeb kind of shows." And then I was like,
that
"But you're
is
listening to them," and he said, "Yeah, they are good." So I mean, even from people that don't watch anime, the anime track still hits them
that
in a certain
is
way.
that is something I wanted to discuss as well. You mentioned weeb. So what do you think about the
Yes,
stereotype of weebs who
I like it actually.
oh,
The word weeb is actually a positive thing. It differs from if you say, if you call a person a weeb, that means that the person is more interested in the Japanese culture because that's what weeb stands for. So if someone comes to me like, oh, you're a weeb. Yeah, I'm a weeb. I interested in the culture, and I like I like the food, I like the shows, and I overall in or interested in the culture. I even studied Japanese for a while.
Oh
But
wow.
when it comes to people who say weeaboo, then now we're getting serious.
That's in the dangerous
Yeah,
territory.
that's the danger. That's the dangerous territory, because weeaboo is more of like a person who trying to fit into a culture. Is like kind of imposter
Almost
syndrome.
fetishist also.
Yeah.
Like fetishist the whole culture
Yes.
in a
And
not so good way.
yeah, they are kind of bad the
Yeah.
bad enemy watchers. They are the evil person. But a weave, that's like,
A
yeah,
weeb is just someone that likes another culture, like
yeah.
honestly.
And then we have the otakus, but we don't talk about those yet.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. No, but yeah.
Alright, I think we'll have to make this a two-parter. But first, before we finish this episode off, would you guys recommend anime to someone who might be listening?
Yes, most definitely. You will thank me for this. And you you can find me at christian.lirudsnabla.gmail.com. Send me a thank you letter there. But yes, I would recommend anime. It's you won't regret any hours of watching it.
Mm.
Just make sure you don't watch SEO, and then we're good.
Alright, what about you, Hilma? Would you recommend anime to any potential listener?
I would recommend it, and I would say like some people see anime as like a turn off or like it's not a cool thing to do. And when they watch one anime, they're like, "Oh God, what is this?" But maybe you should try different genres because I know for
Hmm.
sure that I don't like all the genres. I
Mm,
love
Yeah.
some anime, but I hate others. Well, hate is a strong word, but you have to find what you like as well.
mm,
Because there's like an ocean of anime. Like honestly, there's so many different animes, and I promise you, you will find one that you like.
Yeah. Before we end, I just wanna say one thing.
yeah.
Did you guys know that anime has become a trend at the moment? It's been kinda most people in my class, they didn't watch anime when we started out in the first grade of high school or gymnasium, whatever you want to call it. But now everybody in my class, almost everybody, have watched at least 2 to 3 animes because of TikTok, and it kind of scares me. I just wanted, I just wanted to say that because, okay, yeah, it's kind of weird, but
Mm.
yeah.
Alright. Any other final note that you might have, Hilma, before we finish?
Not really. More than that, just if someone says they like anime, don't see them as a weeaboo.
Yes, don't see them as a weird bro. Call them weeb. That's okay.
Yeah, like just understand that it's an appreciation of another culture.
Mm,
It's
It's
just
yeah,
good story making. It's great in so many ways. And well, we haven't really talked about problematic things with anime, but that's unnecessary to talk about here.
yeah,
But it's just if you want a good story that strays from what you're used to, then watch anime.
mm-hmm. Alright. I think that's a pretty good note to end on then. Thank you so much for taking part in this podcast. I hope that any listener might consider watching anime in the future then. And I wish you all a very nice day. See ya.
yes, yeah.
Yay.